A medieval merchant risks his life for 3 years to get a tiny bag of black pepper. Now picture him watching someone dump it all on rotten meat. Crazy, right? But that's what history books tell us happened all the time. Here's the thing, medieval spices were worth more than gold. People literally used them as money. A pound of saffron could buy you a war horse. Black pepper was so valuable that people put it in their wills alongside land and jewelry. Venice built an entire empire controlling spice trade routes. Columbus wasn't looking for America, he was desperately trying to find a cheaper way to get spices. You don't learn this in history classes out there, but the age of exploration happened because Europeans were tired of paying crazy prices for pepper and cinnamon. So who could actually afford these precious spices? Only the super wealthy. And what were they doing with them? Showing off at fancy dinner parties, creating elaborate dishes to impress their guests. These weren't desperate people trying to choke down spoiled meat, they were rich nobles competing to see who could throw the most expensive feast. The idea that they'd waste a fortune on rotten food is like saying billionaires today buy Ferraris to haul garbage. It makes zero economic sense. Think medieval times were a free-for-all when it came to food safety. Think again. Medieval towns had food inspectors that would make modern health departments jealous. Every morning, market officials walked through meat stalls checking for freshness. If they found anything spoiled, boom, the whole batch got thrown out immediately. Butchers weren't just random guys with knives. They belonged to powerful guilds with strict rules. Sell bad meat. You'd face massive fines, public humiliation, and could lose your license forever. You don't learn this in history classes out there, but some medieval cities had food safety laws stricter than what we have today. Here's what's really wild. Medieval people knew exactly where their food came from. No mysterious supply chains or factory farms. Your butcher lived down the street. You probably knew the farmer who raised the cow. When they slaughtered an animal, the whole community knew about it. The meat went from farm to table in hours, not weeks. And those guild systems. They created networks of accountability that extended from the farm all the way to your dinner table. Master butchers trained apprentices for years, passing down knowledge about proper meat handling, storage, and preparation. This wasn't some primitive system, it was a sophisticated food safety network that kept entire communities healthy and well-fed. Medieval food preservation was so advanced that high-end restaurants still use their techniques today. Take confit, they'd cook meat slowly in its own fat, then store it completely covered. This created a perfect seal that kept meat fresh for months while making it taste incredible. French chefs still do this exact same thing. Their smoking operations were like food science labs. Oak wood for beef, apple wood for pork, beech wood for fish, each combination was carefully chosen for specific flavors and preservation properties. Modern artisanal producers study these medieval smoking techniques because they were so effective. You don't learn this in history classes out there, but medieval people had natural refrigeration that put some modern systems to shame. They cut ice from frozen lakes in winter and stored it in specially engineered ice houses. These weren't just holes in the ground, they had drainage systems, insulation, and air circulation that kept ice frozen well into summer. Monasteries were the real preservation masters. They developed some of the world's first jam and preserve recipes, creating concentrated fruit preparations using honey and sugar that lasted through brutal winters. Many of these recipes are still used by specialty food producers today. The salt curing process alone was incredibly sophisticated. Different salts for different meats, precise timing, specific storage conditions. Cod preserved this way could last for years and became one of Europe's most important trade goods. Here's something that might blow your mind: medieval people often had access to fresher food than we do today. While we're eating meat that's traveled thousands of miles and sat in warehouses for weeks, they were getting their food from farms they could literally walk to. Most medieval communities were small, tight-knit places where everyone knew everyone. When you bought meat, you often knew the farmer who raised the animal, watched it get slaughtered, and took it home the same day. Try getting that kind of freshness at your local supermarket. The nose-to-tail approach meant nothing got wasted. Fresh cuts for immediate eating, organs turned into pâtés and sausages, tough cuts slow-cooked into stews, and anything left over got dried or preserved. You don't learn this in history classes out there, but this system was so efficient that many modern sustainable food movements are trying to recreate it. And medieval consumers were picky. Market records show customers regularly complaining about meat quality, demanding refunds, and forcing vendors to guarantee freshness. These weren't desperate people grateful for whatever they could get, they were informed consumers who expected quality and weren't afraid to demand it. The whole system was designed around freshness and quality, not preservation of spoiled food. When you have access to fresh meat daily and sophisticated preservation techniques for storing surplus, why would you ever need to mask the taste of rotten food with expensive spices?